Imagine, if you will, a dusty old library, the kind you'd see in a movie with secret passages and hidden treasures. Somewhere in the corner, behind a forgotten shelf, lies a book that holds tales of ancient gods, rebellious angels, and cosmic battles that make Game of Thrones look like a friendly family picnic. This, my friends, is the Book of Enoch. The Book of Enoch is like that one fascinating, rebellious cousin who didn't make it to the family reunion photo because they were off exploring the world, climbing mountains, and getting tattoos. This ancient text, attributed to Enoch, yes, the great-grandfather of Noah, was revered by early Jewish and Christian communities. Yet, despite its influence and compelling narratives, it was given the cold shoulder when the Bible was canonized. But why? Was it too controversial? Too revealing? Or was it simply too interesting? Let's dive in and find out. The omission of the Book of Enoch, a harsh truth. Let's face it, the process of canonizing the Bible wasn't exactly a democratic election. More like a reality show elimination round where only the least controversial texts made the cut. The Book of Enoch, with its tales of fallen angels and end-of-the-world scenarios, probably got the boot in the first episode. But this isn't just any book. It's packed with stories that are as juicy as a season finale cliffhanger. Yet, despite its rich narrative and historical significance, it was excluded. This exclusion raises some serious questions about the nature of divine inspiration and the criteria for selecting which texts made it into the holy book. The mystical and controversial content. The Watchers and the Nephilim. Angels gone wild. If you think Keeping Up with the Kardashians has drama, wait until you hear about the Watchers. These were no ordinary angels. These celestial beings descended to Earth, took one look at human women, and decided to throw divine caution to the wind. They married these women, which led to the birth of the Nephilim, a race of giants. Think of it as angels gone wild, but with more catastrophic consequences. Genesis 6 verses 1-4 gives us a teaser trailer. When human beings began to increase in number on the earth and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. Then the Lord said, "My spirit will not contend with humans forever, for they are mortal. Their days will be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them. They were the heroes of old, men of renown." But the Book of Enoch gives us the full movie. The Watchers' descent, their forbidden unions, and the havoc their giant offspring wrought on Earth are detailed in a narrative that would make any soap opera look tame. These giants, the Nephilim, weren't just tall. They were strong, powerful, and exceedingly wicked. Enoch's account of their exploits reads like a tabloid exposé. Betrayal, violence, and a divine crackdown that makes you wonder if God had to call in the celestial SWAT team. Elaborate descriptions of heaven and hell. Divine real estate tour. If Zillow had listings for heavenly mansions and infernal dungeons, the Book of Enoch would be the real estate agent giving you the grand tour. Enoch gets a VIP pass to the heavenly realms, where he sees the divine throne, angelic beings, and celestial wonders that would make a CGI-laden blockbuster look bland. In Enoch 14:8-25, he describes his vision of God's abode. "And I proceeded until I came near to a wall which is built of crystals and surrounded by tongues of fire, and it began to affright me. And I went into the tongues of fire and drew nigh to a large house which was built of crystals. And the walls of the house were like a tessellated floor made of crystals, and its groundwork was of crystal. Its ceiling was like the path of the stars and the lightnings, and between them were fiery cherubim, and their heaven was clear as water. A flaming fire surrounded the walls, and its portals blazed with fire. And I entered into that house, and it was hot as fire and cold as ice. There were no delights of life therein. Fear covered me, and trembling got hold upon me." These visions are more detailed than a Tolkien map of Middle-earth. Such elaborate and mystical descriptions likely made early church leaders nervous. They preferred the more reserved accounts found in canonical texts, fearing that Enoch's imaginative storytelling might lead believers astray. Apocalyptic visions, the ultimate spoiler alert. The Book of Enoch doesn't just stop at heavenly tours. It dives headfirst into apocalyptic visions that make The Walking Dead look like a Sunday picnic. Enoch's visions of the final judgment, the punishment of the wicked, and the rewards of the righteous are elaborately detailed and downright terrifying. In Enoch 1:9, which is even quoted in the New Testament epistle of Jude 1 verses 14 to 15, he describes the coming judgment. Behold, he comes with 10,000s of his holy ones to execute judgment upon all, and to destroy all the ungodly, and to convict all flesh of all the works of their ungodliness which they have ungodly committed, and of all the hard things which ungodly sinners have spoken against him. Imagine reading this after a long day. You'd probably sleep with one eye open. The dramatic and vivid nature of these apocalyptic scenarios likely raised eyebrows among early church leaders, who were wary of anything that might overshadow the more restrained apocalyptic literature found in the canonical texts. Questioning canonization. The complex process of canonization, theological survivor. The process of canonizing the Bible was like a season of survivor, with theological debates, political maneuvering, and social considerations all playing a role. Early church leaders decided which texts made the cut through a combination of these factors, often excluding those that didn't fit their theological mold. The exclusion of the Book of Enoch raises some serious questions about divine inspiration and the criteria for canonization. If Enoch was divinely inspired, why wasn't it included in the Bible? And if it wasn't, why did early communities revere it? These questions highlight the human element in the canonization process and the potential biases that influenced which texts were deemed authoritative. The role of theological views, the heresy filter. One of the main reasons texts were excluded from the Bible was their alignment, or lack thereof, with prevailing theological views. Anything too controversial or heretical was often left out. The Book of Enoch, with its detailed accounts of fallen angels, forbidden unions, and apocalyptic visions, likely fell into this category. Its narratives presented a cosmology and theology that were too elaborate and speculative for the early church's comfort. Political and social considerations. Keeping the peace. The early church wasn't just a religious institution, it was a political powerhouse. Decisions about which texts to include in the Bible were influenced by political and social factors. Texts that challenged the church's authority or promoted ideas that could lead to social unrest were often excluded. The Book of Enoch, with its dramatic narratives and vivid descriptions, may have been seen as too controversial and potentially disruptive. Similar existential myths in the Bible. Genesis and the Nephilim, the PG-13 version. The Book of Enoch expands upon the brief mention of the Nephilim in Genesis 6 verses 1 to 4. The Genesis account is cryptic, leaving many questions unanswered. Enoch provides a detailed narrative of the fallen angels' transgressions and their offspring, presenting a more comprehensive but controversial account. The cryptic nature of Genesis may have been preferred to avoid doctrinal complications. In the Genesis account, the Nephilim are mentioned in passing, leaving much to the imagination. This brevity allows for a wide range of interpretations and avoids the potential doctrinal complications that a more detailed account might present. The Book of Enoch, on the other hand, provides a detailed and dramatic narrative that leaves little room for interpretation. This detailed account may have been seen as too controversial and potentially disruptive, leading to its exclusion from the canon. The flood narrative, the director's cut. Both the Book of Enoch and the canonical Bible include flood narratives, but Enoch provides additional context, including the role of the Watchers in corrupting humanity. This additional detail could have been seen as unnecessary or conflicting with the simpler narrative of Genesis, which attributes the flood solely to human wickedness. The Genesis flood narrative is straightforward and focuses on the wickedness of humanity as the reason for the flood. The Book of Enoch, however, adds an additional layer of complexity by attributing the corruption of humanity to the actions of the Watchers. This additional detail may have been seen as unnecessary or even conflicting with the simpler narrative of Genesis. The preference for a simpler and more straightforward narrative may have contributed to the exclusion of the Book of Enoch from the canon. Apocalyptic vision. Enoch's detailed visions of heaven, hell, and the end times share similarities with the apocalyptic literature in Daniel and Revelation. However, Enoch's visions are more elaborate and speculative, which may have been seen as too controversial for inclusion. the canonical texts with their more restrained apocalyptic narratives.